Hello, welcome to the VA Home Loan Podcast. Once again, I'm one of your hosts, Frank Array, of course, here with my very handsome and intelligent co-host, Mike Fischer.
Oh, here he is.
What's going on, man? How you doing?
I'm doing great, man. Post holidays, just
Yeah.
getting right into it. I
Nice.
love it.
Well, let's get into it, man. I want to talk about property types, VA eligible property types. There's so many kinds of property out there. You got your regular cookie cutter single family home. You got your condos. You got your PUDs, right? You got your acreage. And properties have acreage. You got your city sewer, city water. You got your well. You got your septic. You got all kinds of stuff that's out there. And just want to make sure, can VA do everything? Or they got some restrictions? Or what are we looking at for property types?
I like it, Frank. And the good answer is yes, almost. Yes, they can do almost everything.
Okay.
So most of the things that you see in the lending space, you hear us talking about conventional loans or FHA loans or USDA loans. VA fits in the box on almost all of the property types that the other agencies and loan types work for. So you could do existing construction, new construction, proposed construction, manufactured homes, modular homes, condos. You can even do mobile homes if they're affixed to land, permanently affixed.
So
So
all those things you just rattled off,
mhm,
those are things that can be done.
those are things that can be
I
done.
mean, those things alone were
Those things
quite a
alone.
lot of things.
They were. They were. So there's a lot of questions though that come up, when we go through that list. And the minute we do that, someone will come back and say, like, hey, I have a house and it's on 20 acres. I've heard that's a problem. And a lot of times the answers to those questions are pretty simple. It just comes down to, is it zoned like that? Is it allowed? Or is that supposed to be agriculture farmland, or is it really supposed to be residential? If it's residential and it's allowed, and you can find comparable sales,
Mm,
comps, the
mm.
VA absolutely would allow that.
Wow.
Yeah, all day long. And if you're trying to buy a house and it's on like 100 acres and there's no other homes that have sold like that in centuries
Right.
in that area,
You've
that
got a
can be tough.
750 square foot 1-1 on
Mhm.
100 acres might be an issue.
Might be an issue, but
Yeah.
VA does absolutely allow land. You can have outbuildings for horses as long as you're not actually operating and running a farm and making money off of that. Something that should maybe be zoned agricultural all day. That completely fits. And
But if
there's
it's I don't know that I think the friendly term for it is hobby farm. Like it's not for business, but
yes.
I got a quarter of an acre of vineyard, and I got horses, and I got things like that. That's okay.
It's fascinating that we went down this path because our team at Success Mortgage saw a transaction a couple weeks ago, and the purchase agreement literally said rancher's purchase agreement. And I got a little bit scared. Uh,
Rancher's purchase
I know.
agreement.
I was a little scared. I was like, oh man, is this zoning? Is this going to work? Are there comparable houses, the whole 9 yards? And it just appeared it was a ranching community. The home had been split off from another ranch, but it
Hmm.
was a smaller amount of acreage. It was zone residential. And after we did follow up, there were other similar properties, and it was allowed. It was something the VA would absolutely take. If it had been part of an operating ranch, could have been a bigger problem. But
Yeah.
those kind of things do work. Just you got to dig a little deeper sometimes into, the main question: is it a primary residence? Is it allowed for zoning? And are they using it for commercial income, or is it really just a residential property?
Yeah.
Now, the other thing that comes up a lot in the multiple acreage or land question is, can I combine lots? Does it have to be a single real estate entity, or can you do multiple parcels and lots? And
Oh, like
yeah,
blanket multiple parcels. So you've
right,
got
right.
it's the house plus these two lots or something
Yep,
like that, and
yep.
then blanket that. Okay.
So there's tricks to that. The property really, it has to be contiguous, like connected, if you will. It could
Okay.
technically be divided by a road or a waterway, but the spirit of the purchase needs to be contiguous parcels. And in theory, those parcels shouldn't be buildable. They should be something that would normally be conveyed as buildable and non-buildable, like that's hunting land and this is our house,
Mm,
or this is a lot next to a golf course or a
mm,
waterway or something that would normally you wouldn't build on.
mm,
If the intention was to try to do it and then build later, that's no bueno.
mm.
Um, but the part that sometimes gets confused, you don't necessarily have to modify the tax ID or legal description. You just have to show that it makes sense for them to be conveyed. in tandem, if you will. And if they've been conveyed like that in the past and it's the same owner, it can absolutely be done VA. It's kind of cool stuff. Now, there's another trick here. We talked about non-residential, like again, farming, agriculture, what have you. But you certainly could have commercial, like in a city too, right? You could have a property that's mixed use. Maybe it's a residence, and great example would be like an attorney or an accountant who has a house in a town, and maybe their office is downstairs and they meet clients down there, but the majority of the house is really just their home. So would the VA allow that, Frank? What do you think?
That's so funny you bring that up because I was going to ask about mixed use, right?
Mhm.
And just put it out of my mind, just automatically saying no. There's that would never happen. So I'm going to say no.
There you go. Well, I'm not trying to publicly, tear you down or anything like that, but as long as the appraiser is not giving too much value to the business operation or the commercial fixtures, then ultimately, yes, you can do that. You would need to find comps. Comparable homes is something that we talk about a lot in this space, but as long as it's legally permitted, conforms to current zoning, legal, mixed use like that, it's totally acceptable. The VA will allow us to do that. Kind
What
of
a
cool, hey?
trip. What a
I know.
trip.
It's
Yeah.
totally crazy. Totally
Yeah.
crazy. And of course, we've talked about this on other recordings, but you can do a property that's residential, but it's an investment property, a 2 unit, 3 unit, 4 unit, as long as you're purchasing as a primary. If you're a veteran that's
And
purchasing
you're
as a
going to live
primary,
in
you're
one.
living in 1 unit. Yep.
But
So
they hold that to four max, right?
four is the max on that. That's
Mhm.
correct.
So
Yep. And
like,
we
yeah, standard single family
Yeah.
residence.
You'll find a paragraph with an asterisk here and there that in some way, shape, or form mentions eight, but I have not found a bank or investor that actually wants to do that. Pretty much everybody's going to stick with four. So
But there's a paragraph here or there or
it's
something.
nestled somewhere deep in the archives
A
of VA
nestled
guidelines. So
paragraph.
yeah, just be careful. Careful.
Dude, we'd like to
That's
dig that one up
one of
and
those
and
rumors.
and
I
and
know.
yeah, abuse
I know.
that because I bet
I
there'd be
know.
a lot of veterans like, are you kidding me? I could buy a sixplex and live in one of the things
Right.
and get the rent. I'll take it. You
Well,
know.
my friends and I, we have a little ongoing bet to see who can find the veteran who owns the most properties that have been, retained with their
Oh, that's
VA
a cool thing to
homegrown.
do. Yeah.
Yeah, because we talked before, you can use entitlement multiple times. We
Yeah.
found a vet that has five properties, all financed with VA because they had enough entitlement and it
Wow.
kind of, yeah. Well,
It's pretty
so
good.
far we're at five. Five is the max we found.
Hmm.
So if you know somebody that has six, let us know. We'd be fascinated to hear about that story.
Yeah. Yeah.
So all right, we'll close out with a couple things you really probably shouldn't do or are going to have some problems with, and then we'll
Yeah.
let you get back to your day, of course. So like if you're trying to buy something that's really close to like an airport or oil drilling area or what have you, lava flow zones, coastal bear areas, uh, massive, massive flood zone areas that don't seem to have flood insurance, areas next to transmission lines, all these kind of things you're going to have problems with. You're not generally going to be eligible for. So, we do sometimes get these like, hey, I have a property, but there could be this environmental concern or this concern with, with commercial. So you're going to
Hmm.
have some problems there. And you're going to have problems if you're trying to buy and finance a mobile home in a mobile home park that has lot rent where you actually don't own the land
Yeah.
itself.
Yeah.
And sometimes you're going to have big problems if you're trying to buy mobile homes that were built prior to 1976. It's kind of an FHA HUD standard
Sure. Yeah.
older home. It's just, in theory, the VA might allow it, but I have not found too many lenders. I heard there's one in the whole country that's possibly doing them, but
Wow.
you're gonna have a lot of problems with that. So,
Hmm.
so that and any property that's super atypical for the area and it's hard to find comparable homes. So folks will come to us all the time and say like, "Hey, can I do this geodesic dome or could I do this tiny home or this barn dominium?" And the answer generally comes, I mean, are there comps? Is it big enough to beat a code, to get certificate of occupancy, to be a permanently fixed property, to have recorded title? Um, and are there other homes like that that have essentially sold at one point in time?
Right.
Somebody this morning came to me and said, "Man, I got these prefab concrete houses, and they're like mostly concrete. And can I do this VA?" I'm like, "Well, has one ever been sold in this area?" "Well, this is a builder, and he's doing his first one right now." I'm like, "Holy cow! How are we going to do that? How are we going to, show that that fits in the box?" And
Interesting. But
it's possible, but you
I mean, I
need
was going
some
to say
help.
maybe you could